Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. Hey guys, I'm Rand Younger, and this is Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. I just want to welcome Rachel Kolb and Eric Godfrey to the show. And tonight is part two of Barbenheimer. Last week we spoke about Barbie, the really fun and flashy Mattel property turned into a film. Now we're going to be discussing a much different film, really different subject matter. It's pretty much the complete opposite of Barbie. And of course, I'm talking about Oppenheimer, the story of the man behind the atomic bomb, J. Robert Oppenheimer. And this is an epic film in every sense of the word. It is basic. It is a true story. These were true events, obviously, from Oppenheimer's life. We follow him from his early life rather, up until the Manhattan Project, where he was responsible for the creation of the bomb and then using that bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan during World War II. I love this film. I think this is number one for me so far on my list, my top 10 of the year. It beats out Air, the Michael Jordan Nike story. But this film, I can't praise it enough. Every element works here. You've got fantastic performances. You've got great direction from Christopher Nolan. You've got a great score. You've got great special effects, both practical and computer generated. The editing is phenomenal, and the subject matter is really fascinating. Fantastic film. I can't praise it enough. Eric, I know you had wanted to see this for a while. What did you think of the film?
I think this. It's kind of boring because I feel like a lot of reviews have also said this, but now having seen it, I completely agree. I do think this is Nolan's masterpiece.
Hmm.
I think this is the best movie he's ever made.
Yeah.
I was stunned. It's just 3 hours that I was completely locked in. This was a movie that everybody delivered just stunning performances, and this just such a kinetic story, and the life and of Oppenheimer and everything. It's just this is like all the way from the crazy beginning to that absolutely haunting ending. I absolutely loved every frame in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, I can't really find any flaws with it. I mean,
Mhm.
it's really just a remarkable piece of art, and I honestly cannot wait to see it again. Uh,
Mhm.
it did clock in at I believe it was exactly 3 hours, but those 3 hours just flew by, and I actually wanted a lot more of this story,
Mhm.
and it was just totally gripping, and just so many things working for it. Rachel, what did you think of the film?
Echoing Eric, I really enjoyed this film a lot. It is very likely going to be in my top five for the year, but I mean, the year's still, I mean, well, it's about halfway over at this point, but I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of holiday releases that will shake up my listing a bit. But this reminded me a lot of when The Irishman came out on Netflix, and people were talking about a way in which you could watch it in segments if you didn't feel like sitting down and watching the entire runtime of it. I think that this movie has a much, much, much quicker and brisker pace than Irishman. So I think it is very easy to sit down and watch the entire thing and not feel the length of it the way that I did personally with it. But I also think that there was very easily a way that someone could have turned this into a mini series. That you could have had kind of those natural break points,
Yeah.
and maybe even with some of these characters that I honestly, the amount of depth that you get from some of these supporting roles is really shocking,
Yeah.
and like in the time that it's given. But I could have seen, if you had done this as a mini series, I could see some of those characters getting even more development and screen time throughout it. But the
Yeah.
movie as it is again, like, yeah, it's I think easily Nolan's best film. Um, Definitely his most just consistent in all of the elements. And it's very interesting that he doesn't have Hans Zimmer doing the score for this one. That it's Ludwig Göransson.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah,
was an
who
interesting choice because he's used Hans Zimmer in the past for many of his projects, and this film screams Hans Zimmer. So it's interesting that they went with a not as well known composer, a fantastic composer in his own right, Ludwig Göransson, I believe it's pronounced. Forgive me if I'm butchering that. But the score was fantastic. It's very subtle, and it really it creeps up on you, and kind of like how the story kind of creeps up on you. But
It's the compliment of Nolan that it's really always telling that Nolan is one of the few directors out there that, especially in theatrical releases, knows how to use sound so perfectly to just build up. Like there's so many sequences in this, just even outside of the bomb. It's not like the Trinity test is, of course, stunning
yeah,
as it was, but it's there's so much of how he constantly uses the sound and the world and the vision that that Oppenheimer sees the world in to build this tension in something as simple as just like a courtroom interview, and that you're just feeling that like as the sounds are coming together and the pacing and just how well that sound, that bass and everything echoes and just like builds you and builds you up.
yeah, he certainly knows how to use music and sound effects to it's a great mixture that he's established over the decades in terms of that sound dynamic. I wanted to discuss the cast. So we've got Cillian Murphy at the forefront of it all, who plays Oppenheimer brilliantly.
yes.
He looks like the real Oppenheimer too, from what I've looked at on websites. You've got Emily Blunt, who plays his wife, who she's just a tortured soul throughout the whole thing. Matt Damon plays General Groves, who's basically the military presence during the Manhattan Project. We've got Robert Downey Jr. in a fantastic supporting role as Strauss. He's a member of the Atomic Committee, I believe it was, mission. We also have a great Florence Pugh, who, I love her and everything. She's fantastic. Josh Hartnett he actually his presence here, actually, I was impressed by his work.
Yeah.
I never really liked him before, to be honest, except for that vampire movie he did in 2007.
Oh, yes.
30 Days of Night, I think it was called.
Yes. Yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah, that was one of his very few decent performances. So he, I was happy to see him in this type of role, kind of, in the background.
Yeah, and I'll always have a little bit of a soft spot for him because he did come to our high school.
Oh,
When
oh,
I was at school there, he came to speak to us about the upcoming election, and I think he was there actually talking about Al Gore. Like he was there to like that. He was like, "I'm here to talk to you about the importance of voting, but I'm also here in support of Al Gore."
I think
So
that was something like the MTV Rock the Vote stuff.
probably.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he was one of a few random celebrities that came to our school to talk to us about the election.
was that around the time of Pearl Harbor?
Oh, yeah, it
2001?
would have been post the movie. Yeah, because Pearl Harbor that came out when I was in middle school, I believe. So yeah, that would have been high school. That would have been post Pearl Harbor.
Gotcha. Yeah, just a terrible, terrible movie. But that's another discussion, another war film. Also, we had Casey Affleck, who I was kind of. Oh, was that a spoiler? That might have been a spoiler there.
That is a great review.
Like what I feel like they said
It's on
this,
IMDb.
they said this on NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour. Every white male character actor in Hollywood is in this movie. So if they fall into that category, then you're gonna see him pop up. And yeah, Casey Affleck, he's here.
That's true. Yeah, it's sad. I honestly do not recall an African American presence in this film, which is a
Yeah.
shame.
Which is
Um,
also, unfortunately, probably much more very historically accurate to, like I said, unfortunately, especially considering the targets of the bomb and just
yeah,
everything that went on with that.
yeah, true. So also another great supporting performance from Rami Malek, who I don't even think he had any dialogue, or he had like one or two
Oh yeah,
lines.
he did. He had a very important role near the end.
I don't know. It just kind of he seemed like he was just towards the background there, and yeah.
He has an extremely great cathartic moment.
Okay. Then I stand corrected. All right. So, and lastly, rounding out the cast, we have a performance from Kenneth Branagh, who was his previous film Dunkirk, or was one of his
Tenet.
Tenet,
and he played the villain in Tenet.
Tenet, and then yeah, Dunkirk before that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, this film screams Oscar, and I love that, and I think it's definitely going to be nominated for Best Picture.
Oh, no doubt.
Oh, absolutely. They're like I can pretty much tell you right now, screenplay, which I know will be adapted because it was based on the book.
Yeah.
Downey for Best Supporting Actor,
Yeah.
Cillian for Best Actor,
Oh yeah.
Nolan most likely for Best Director, and in the movie itself for Best Film.
Yeah, and
yeah.
he didn't get mentioned when we were doing the cast rundown, but David Krumholtz as Isidore Rabi, like he was fantastic. Just again, kind of an underappreciated
This
actor.
is a movie. This is a movie just loaded with. You've seen him in this. You've seen him in that. It just everybody, and nobody has a wasted performance. Nobody has a wasted dialogue. Everybody just, even if they're only on screen for a minute or two, even if they only have one scene, everyone. And I think that's the strength of the movie. That's the Nolan strength, that nobody feels wasted in this sea of amazing actors.
Right. And amazing talent. I want to go back to the editing and the sound design, which those are, I think those two will be nominated for Academy Awards as well. So yeah, Nolan has basically, he's the captain of this ship, and everyone working for him, every aspect of this film, it's just, the more I think about it, the more it makes me happy at how great it is. And yeah, this is definitely going to go down as one of the greatest historical dramas of all time.
Yeah. I wonder also if Nolan does feel a weird sort of kinship to Oppenheimer, in being someone that Oppenheimer was tasked with bringing together all of these people with a singular goal and a singular vision, and having to basically take care of them and take care of these sort of clashing personalities and everything. I wonder if it really mirrors kind of his time working as a director in Hollywood.
That's actually an interesting point. Yeah. There are a lot of parallels between these two geniuses, and maybe that's what attracted Nolan to the project originally. Like, he sees himself as this character. It's not, I mean, it's not even a character. It's an actual historical figure. And yeah, he is basically the Oppenheimer of film, it seems. but no bombs, because
yes, no bombs.
No.
Yeah, knock on wood with that. But so far, no bombs for Nolan.
Yeah, so I'm thinking back. Let's go back a little bit in this. So his first film, his first major film was Memento, and what a splash to be made there, And from there, it was just hit after hit. Obviously, we had the Dark Knight trilogy. The Prestige came out between those movies. What else we got?
Actually, you're forgetting one between Memento and The Dark Knight that I'm a huge fan of. Insomnia with Pacino and Robin Williams.
And actually, Oppenheimer is the first R-rated film of Nolan's since Insomnia.
Wow!
So just FYI.
Yeah, the fact that he decided, I'm going to cast Robin Williams as a sadistic killer, and how that actually worked.
It really did. And side note, Williams also gave in a very villainous performance in 1 Hour Photo, the same year.
Yeah, because that was around that same time when he was really experimenting with what he could do on screen.
Yeah. I wish he would have taken it further, because he was on a roll that year.
Oh, I wish we had more Robin Williams roles to speak of.
Yeah.
Indeed. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about another movie that is basically pre-Oppenheimer, but is pretty much the same film, and but just told very differently in terms of style and technical choices. But that would be Fat Man and Little Boy from 1989, starring Paul Newman. And basically, this is the same story. It is the Manhattan Project, the evolution of that mission to bring the atomic bomb to fruition and to eventually drop it on Japan. I really wanted to discuss this movie because this was a great movie too. Very different though in tone, like I said, and it went in some different directions. There's a scene with John Cusack's character, who plays one of the scientists who gets very badly burned and injured due to the radiation, which was a scene that I was expecting to see in Oppenheimer, but we didn't really
Well,
have.
I think one of the key differences is that this one is essentially all about the creation of the two bombs at Los Alamos, and with Nolan, he really wanted to explore more of the psyches behind it. So where the science is there,
Right.
this movie is way more about the what do we do about this, what do we do about that. Whereas in Oppenheimer, it is more about the personalities, the conflict, and about the ethical questions of even building a weapon of this destructive magnitude.
Right.
Whereas in this one, while those questions are raised, it is more of just that segment leading all the way up to the Trinity test.
True. Plus the again, the performances. I think the performances in Batman and Little Boy were fantastic as well. I was having a lot of fun just trying to pick out certain supporting actors in this. But first, let me mention Paul Newman gave a pitch perfect portrayal of General Groves, played by Matt Damon in Oppenheimer. And basically, this film kind of revolves around him and more of his relationship with Oppenheimer, played by Dwight Schultz, who I had to look him up. And
see, this is where my recent conversion to being a Trekkie came in handy, because he's a huge character in Star Trek, because he's Reggie Barclay, one of the best Next Generation characters of all time.
See, Eric, that was inadvertent. I did not put those together because I know you're a huge Trekkie. And he is a significant character in the Star Trek lexicon. So he was also in the A-Team, which is interesting. And I think he's just done a lot of TV throughout the 80s and 90s. But he played Oppenheimer in the 1989 film. Not nearly as good as Killian, but still a very decent performance. We also had Bonnie Bedelia, who was Holly McClane in Die Hard 1 and 2. Also, John Cusack is in it. I mentioned him. Laura Dern and John C. McGinley, actually. So it's a John
C. McGinley and his scene partner, the monkey.
Yeah, the monkey.
Yes, of course. Forgive me. Yes, the monkey. So I had a lot of fun spotting some familiar, and also the actor who played Agent Coulson has a very small part. So
Clark Gregg. Yeah,
it was really cool to see these.
And a young Laura Dern as doting nurse.
Yeah, 1 year before she did Wild at Heart.
Oh wow!
So she was still, getting ready for the big leagues with Jurassic Park a few years later.
Yep.
But it's a good movie. It didn't feel like a regular movie. It felt more like a TV movie to me.
It did. I think the problem is it's you don't want to follow Oppenheimer. You don't want to follow that aspect.
Watching it post watching Oppenheimer, it really suffered for me. I think I might have been a little kinder to it if I had seen it first. And I don't really blame the actors for it in this. The actors, I feel like, are doing kind of the best that they can. I think I actually put most of the blame with the script. And weirdly, the music for it, which I did notice, the composer for this film, famous composer, it's Ennio Morricone. That worked with Sergio Leone for
there's some
all those years.
He has some iconic westerns.
Iconic movie music just in general. But I felt like the music mostly in this was just kind of your typical military fare. Like it was a lot of brass band military march stuff.
Yeah, there wasn't really that much to grab onto here. Nothing memorable. Because it's sad because he was a fantastic composer, known for some of the most iconic Western scores of all time. But his score was kind of like, it was very which is sad. But
But I think that speaks to one of the things that I guess why I also
Yeah.
prefer Oppenheimer over this is because Fat Man and Little Boy treats it more as the military affair, whereas Oppenheimer is much more about the scientists, about those minds that went into it. And there's all kinds of moral quandaries around the creation and the usage of the A bombs, and Oppenheimer I feel does a much better job addressing those than Fat Boy or Fat and the Little Boy,
Fat Man and Little Boy.
Fat Boy and Little Man.
That's a sequel. No,
Yeah,
but no, in real life, there really was no sequel to the atomic bomb because the U.S. government asked Oppenheimer to work on the hydrogen bomb, which was even more
right.
powerful. And he's like,
Which
you know what?
Oppenheimer goes more into, right?
Yeah. So I guess it's good that he quit while he was ahead, and he just didn't want to be in the business of death, and that's commendable.
Well,
So
it's more of and again, this is more to Oppenheimer,
yeah,
like in real life and in the movie, it was much more of a man who created the most destructive, who oversaw the creation of the most destructive weapon, hoping it would be people being like, all right, that's it, that's the end game bomb. We
Mhm.
need to do peace now, instead of somebody else standing up and be like, no, we can make it bigger.
Yeah.
Right. It's like it's never enough with the U.S.
Right, and so and it's
government.
just and so the constant escalation of the war of the bigger bomb, rather than finally admitting it's time to come together because we can now wipe out all of humanity with the press of a button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to say real quick something about Fat Man and Little Boy that I there's a scene in it that I will not forgive it for, which is there's
Oh,
a scene with Paul Newman, and I know that you mentioned the actress's name from Die Hard.
Honey, but yeah,
Yeah, who is playing Oppenheimer's wife in this, and
right.
and literally in the scene he just goes, well, the other wives, they know not to put themselves out in front, and like a good wife knows that this is an important man and you're just there to like smooth the road for him. And I'm just like, this is awful. Like, I don't care if it's like, oh, this is like the time period or whatever. This is like, there was a YouTuber a long time back that would do these videos that
No,
it's like a tortured wife whose husband has to do a big important historical thing,
Right.
and it's basically that, like, he's trying to be an apologist for that sort of character, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, we
It's
don't
a,
need any more of those characters.
yeah, it's a little cringeworthy. I agree with you, and it's a sign of the times. It was the late '80s, so what are you going to do, right? Um, but yeah, I don't know. They're very, very different films.
oh yeah, absolutely.
But obviously, I think Oppenheimer wins the race between these
Oh,
two.
Hmm.
no question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Oppenheimer also has a much more clear point of view about it.
Mhm.
Not necessarily that it's telling you what to think about it,
Mhm.
but that it's much more finessed.
Yeah.
It's like everything is just like feels like it's towards a clear vision.
Right.
So
Right. And again, all the technical elements it's just a very cohesive film. It works on so many levels. And it's a history lesson, which I love. I love, learning about the history of our country, of our society. And as a kid, I was always fascinated by the atomic bomb and the creation of that, and the pure destructive power. Like it's really remarkable what Oppenheimer achieved. And he has been labeled controversial in some circles, but
Mhm.
he's also been heralded, a hero. So it's all in how you look at the man's life, and I think Oppenheimer will definitely shine a light on that history. And I'm glad that it's going to just educate people more about our nation's past. So that's awesome.
mhm.
Um, so guys, we have just a couple minutes left, and I just wanted to speak, on a more serious note. Yesterday, we did lose a very valued member of the entertainment community. It was Paul Rubens, who passed away yesterday, well, the other night, best known as Pee Wee Herman. And he brought joy to everybody, not just children, but to adults for many decades. His movies alone, Pee Wee's Big Adventure, Big Top Pee Wee, all the work he's done on TV, and he even had a very small part in Batman Returns. You know, he was 70 years old. He lost a bout with cancer, but he had been fighting for I think it was 6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
guys, I just wanted to, you know, go around any special memories of Ruben's career that you know, stick out to you.
Well, I grew up with Pee Wee's Playhouse, so that one was that he was when I was young, he was always a staple. We like my cousin. I was always jealous because he had the actual like big like play set and all the different all the puppets and everything. So I was always great when we would go there for Christmas to get to play around with all that. But I also it's like I also remember him weirdly in Mystery Men.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
and and one of the most bizarre
Yeah.
roles where he actually is really funny is the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the
Yes.
movie, which
Yes.
the movie's not good, but I always love his death scene in it
Right.
where he milks it to the best level that
Mhm.
he could. And
Yeah.
it's like I will always love him for his being a great henchman in Buffy.
Yeah. And a lot of people think that the Buffy TV show was better than the movie, and
Oh,
it was.
yeah.
But Rubens definitely was a great villain or sidekick villain in that.
Right.
And he had a cool look too, the long hair and the goatee.
Yep.
Yeah,
But
and also, of course, sort of reprising that role in What We Do in the Shadows in the trial episode.
Oh, that's right, because they bring
Yeah.
back all the Hollywood vampires, so
Yep.
you got to
And
come back.
according to What We Do in the Shadows, he is a Hollywood vampire.
Yeah.
So
that is cool. I'm gonna have to look for that episode now. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Rachel, any fond memories for you?
You know, it's funny because I didn't really watch Pee-wee's Playhouse growing up. I think generally my mom thought it was kind of a weird show, so she was like,
Oh,
I don't. And
it was.
she's like,
It
oh,
was.
let's watch Sesame Street instead. She was much more of a Sesame Street type of mom. But I kind of got into it. I would say probably around the time that he did his live Broadway Pee-wee show.
Okay.
Which I think would have been around 2010, I want to say, was when that was running. And it kind of made me go back and rewatch some of the old show, and of course watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which just holds up. Just really great classic burn. So
It is so good.
Also, Big Top Pee-wee never gets mentioned, but that was actually a really strong sequel or entry in the Pee-wee universe. I love that movie. It's just as quirky and weird as Big Adventure, which was actually Tim Burton's first directorial effort, which was great, and also Danny Elfman's first real actual film score. Which
yes,
those two elements and Pee-wee's presence were just movie magic, I'd say.
yes. Oh, and one last role, if I might call out, Oscar Vibenius in Pushing Daisies. He's in 2 episodes, playing a character with a very keen nose. So it's a great show, anyways. If people haven't watched Pushing Daisies, they should because it was fantastic. Only ran 2 seasons. Should have ran much longer, but yeah, he gets 2 episodes in the show.
All right, and also he was on 30 Rock, I believe it was 1 episode.
I think so. Yeah. Yep.
He was so great, and you know his work will live on forever. He was just really special, really great comedic talent. So he will be missed.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right, guys. So we have just a few minutes left. Any plugs, Eric? I think I know the answer from you.
As usual, I got nothing.
Okay. Fair. Ms. Kolb, anything going on?
Yes, you can find my baking adventures on Instagram at Second Act Bake Shop. You can find our sweet boy Dobby, our sweet Chihuahua at Dobby the House Doggo on Instagram. And stop by the Law of Donut Engineering in Jersey City Heights for donuts. And you can find us on weekends on Saturdays and Sundays. We also do farmers markets, the Riverview Market on Sundays, and the Van Verst Park farmers market on Saturdays.
And now I know you had a Barbie themed donut. Now,
Yes, we did.
do you have an Oppenheimer donut?
We do not have an Oppenheimer donut, but we do have. August is bringing in whole new menus, so stay tuned to our social media on Instagram. It's the LODG Donuts.
Okay.
If you want to find us on Instagram, so
Awesome. Love it. And again, wish I lived in Jersey or closer to it, because I would probably be there every Sunday. Cool. All right. And as for me, you can catch Under the Radar, new episodes on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern. And of course, here on Slam Radio, Sirius XM, channel 145. And feel free to go to the Under the Radar YouTube channel, subscribe and share. Bring the word of great film reviews to your neighbors, to the masses. So yeah. Rachel and Eric, thank you so much again. You guys are always welcome, my favorite power couple. And yeah, this has been great. I'm Randy Younger. This has been Under the Radar. We'll see you next time, guys. Take care.
Under the Radar is brought to you by Magnitude Jewelry. Add a 2 to match your attitude. Patent pending, interchange genuine gemstone and crystal EMF protection jewelry. For more information, please visit magnitudejewelry.com/gemgirl or call 718-268-6634.
Hey guys, I'm Randy Younger, and this is a very special edition of Under the Radar, where we talk all things film. And I have a very special guest with me tonight. We have filmmaker Daniel Poliner of the new drama Come Find Me. Daniel, how's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Thank you for taking the time. So I saw the film the other night. It's really wonderful. It's emotional. It's moving. It's about the characters and actual human beings in a time when we have movies that are about aliens and superheroes. It's very refreshing to see a movie like this. Tell everyone, how did the project originally come about?
Oh, yeah, thank you. It's funny, my son who did these drawings is now 6, and I finished the first draft of the script the day before he was born. I originally wrote it for this actress, Sol Miranda, who plays one of the 2 lead roles in the film. And she had been in my first feature film called Jack Jules, Esther and Me, which will be the same company that's releasing this film is re-releasing that film as well. So you can look out for it. And she played a more of like a supporting character in that film. And I just, like, the moment I met her, I was like, oh, like shit, like, sorry to swear, like she's just got so much spirit, so much talent. It's like oozing out of her. Like at her audition, like I started crying, then she started crying. Like I was so moved that I had always said to her, I'm going to write something for you, that I want to base the whole thing around you. And that's really where it started. I wasn't sure whether it was going to be a short film or a feature film. I knew that I wanted her. Eventually I kind of settled on the idea that she'd be a school principal. And my wife works at a school very much like the one in the movie. And so I was just kind of, honestly, I just asked my wife, I was like, how does your principal talk again? Just say like a couple sentences like your principal. And then I just started imagining Soul, and that was it. And I just started writing, and so we shot what you saw as the whole second half of the film back in like 2017. And as we were editing it, and I was sitting there watching it with and she had such an incredible performance. There's so many other amazing actors in it as well, but I was watching her and I didn't know whether it was, at that point it was like a 45-minute movie, which is like too long to be a short and too short to be a feature.
Right.
Me and my editor were just sitting there watching her daughter, played by Victoria Cartagena, circling around here. There was a wedding in the movie where her daughter is marrying a Jewish person, and you're seeing the rehearsal wedding and you're seeing her circle around, and her daughter is circling around, and Soul's character is watching her daughter, and there's this whole circle happening.
Hmm.
And I remember like saying to my editor, I was like, this movie is about the two of them, and what I ended up doing is I ended up sitting down and talking to Victoria Cartagena, who plays the daughter. And at the time she was shooting the show Manifest. And so her hair at that point was totally different. And I was like, I think I'd like to write a whole first half of this movie about you and about your character. And particularly since her hair was different, I was like, all right, well, we don't need to make it all be at that same weekend that she's getting married. I was like, let me actually just go back in time a little bit and just understand who she is, and in that journey understand their relationship. And I think so it's kind of a crazy way to make a feature film, because it was like a lot of it was written in 2016 and 17 and then shot in 2017, and a whole new portion of it was written in 2019 and shot toward the end of 2019, and then put together. And yeah.
So yeah, what was it like basically piecing together a movie over 5 years? I mean, how challenging was that?
I think in some ways it was one of the most profoundly moving and like cathartic experiences. There's a moment where you're literally seeing the characters hand off. The first half of the movie is all entirely from the perspective of the daughter, and when you watch it and then all of a sudden it comes up and it says 2 years later, and it really is 2 years later, and the actors look different. You know what I mean? They look like 2 years has passed.
Right.
There's something really exciting about that. On a granular level, it's an ultra low budget movie, which means that everybody in the crew was either working for free or for minimum wage, and like, it's no joke. Like, the reason that whole movie moved back 2 years, I'm so glad that it did in terms of the storytelling, but like, Victoria had another job, she changed her hair, and so I had to rewrite the story to fit that, you know what I mean? And it's one of those things where I'm like going to be forever grateful. The same cast and the same crew just kept coming back we're going to do 2 days to pick up a couple more things. Now we're coming back for 8 days to pick up this. And I would say it was like totally unnerving all the time, because you never knew exactly would it work with these shots. And sometimes we had to pick up extra shots when we were doing the other half, where we were going to stick them into the old half. And okay, everybody looks 2 years older, but can we sneak this in, so it's a tightrope all the way to the end. I mean, we were playing with it literally up until we locked the sound a few months ago, and with Soul, and in particular, Soul was watching the cuts and giving me notes, and I was literally reworking some of the voiceover, and honestly, like, dubbing in a little bit of new dialogue just to make sure that we landed the plane and the two pieces came together to give this what we really wanted, which is like, how can you tell a story about two different people and their relationship and the love that they share, but really be from the two different perspectives.
And I'm really so happy that you basically wrote this movie for Soul, because she is a phenomenon. She is a real force in the industry. She is totally genuine and believable and likable in this role. I don't know much about her filmography, but I'm definitely going to go back and check out pretty much everything she's done, because she really made this film. Like, she was the star.
Yeah, I mean, that was the design from the beginning, because I knew, like, from the moment I met her, I was like, I can't believe other people aren't just writing her huge dramatic pieces. And she's primarily known because she had a recurring role on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and so she was on that show for many years. More recently, she did a show on Netflix, Archive 81, I think, on Netflix. But she's a perennial New York City character actor who's always like, there's so many of them, and I'm really proud that so many of them are in our movie. Like, there's just a ton of New York City actors, theater actors, people who've gotten by doing episodes of Law and Order, and happy to, like, it's a grind, and I was really I just felt like consistently I wrote for actors like that I knew, you know what I mean? And so every actor, with very few exceptions, every actor was walking into a part that was written for her, you know, or him. And that's the advantage of being in New York and having all of this production, all this theater to ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised in Queens,
Oh,
and
great.
I just absolutely love seeing New York portrayed on screen when it's basically a character all on its own, and it's just really special for me to see it captured on film. And this film is no different. You definitely, especially the scenes with Christina doing her early morning jogs,
Yeah.
you know. It's great. You're it's like I felt right there with the characters.
Mhm.
So, but tell me a little bit about the casting. How did you come across the actress for Christina? Were there other actresses in mind, or was it always for her?
You know, that was the so back in 2017, Christina's role was big, but not the most prominent. It was written for Soul. And my saving grace is that I've been working for with the same casting director for, I mean, well over 10 years, 15 years, named Julie Schubert, and who had cast Manifest and a lot of other shows. And we knew, actually, that was the only part that I really didn't know going into the original production. And Julie was more or less like, look, I'll hold an audition for you if you want, but I think you're going to want to offer it to Victoria Cartagena. And I was like, oh, and she was like, so I want you to watch a bunch of her stuff. And before you tell me to have an audition, I really want you to offer it to Victoria.
Wow.
And I literally just like watched a couple of scenes of her, and I was like, well, of course, like it was an instant thing. And then working with her, that right away, like within like a minute of shooting with her, she's somebody that, particularly if you watch the first half of the movie, which is all about her, where I just wrote the whole thing for her. What I love about her is that she's portraying a character who's keeping a lot of things inside. And very much when you block a scene with her, she's just like, she's careful, she's doing everything, she's like under the radar. If you shoot it in a very wide shot, you'll just be like, oh, is she here, and then all of a sudden you put this close up, you put a tight lens on her, and then there's all this heartbreak, and you can see so much, and that's why so much of what the whole first half of the movie is, it's shot quite differently, because I just kept thinking this entire thing is going to be by close up of her, putting this character in a situation where we can isolate her and watching her struggle with a lot of very difficult decisions.
Yeah, and a lot is going on in each of these women's minds. You can just tell. I think they say more when they're not even speaking. It's all in the facial reaction. It's all in the tension, especially the scenes where they're together. It's just a completely believable mother-daughter relationship. And it's just, again, it's captured beautifully on film.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
So it seems to me that collaboration is very important to you on a set. How do you establish trust with your actors and that strong sense of collaboration?
I think it's something that I take a lot of pride in, and I tend to work with a lot of the same actors again and again. There's an actor in the opening scene of one of the opening scenes of the movie named Adam Lefevre, who plays Christina's old law school professor. And my first movie with him was 20 years ago, and I just have kept writing. And again, I think some of the trust comes from, I just was like, okay, there's going to be a professor who's going to be kind, who's going to be looking out for her and trying to help her get a job. I'm going to write it for Adam. And I think that we had, very little to say about it, because he knew exactly what I was hoping for. But I think in general, I came from, I majored in theater in college. It was one of my majors. And like, I did a lot of theater directing early on. And I used to do much more like, we're going to rehearse, we're going to work things out. And I still do that a little bit. But on a movie like this, we really honestly didn't have time to rehearse. Again, I don't think I rehearsed ever with Soul. We talked about it a little bit, but I think that instinctively, like, it was written for her. She knew what I wanted, and we worked it out, like within, it's one of those things where, and again, if you have like, say, someone like Tova Feldshuh, who's playing the mother-in-law in this movie, who's just a dynamic actor, we did rehearse for like an hour. Like she met with us for like an hour, you know, but it was, again, it was a situation where the part was fitting her so beautifully that the only issue is that it was more like I could also improv this and this and this. And it was like, oh my God, this like embarrassment of wealth where we're going to just have to see what we want to, you know, because, you know, the only other thing I'll say is that when you're at this budget level, you only have 12 hours. You cannot go over that. Nobody who's working for, I cannot ask anybody who's working for free or for minimum wage. 12 hours is already outrageous. Do you know what I mean? It's not like a livable thing. It's like everybody's coming together to try to make this thing beautiful. You have to let them go and sleep. And so literally you're on a clock from the moment you start. And so part of me, I mean, at some point I hope I'll be able to work with bigger budgets, but like part of me is also just like, I love working with actors, that I love writing parts for actors so that they can come in and we can get right to it. I'll storyboard it ahead of time with a DP. I prefer to have everything set ahead of time so everybody knows. The costume department knows what's going to be shot. The art department already knows. Everybody can have, like, it's going to be extremely tense to get everything in within 12 hours. I try to shoot like 30 setups in a day or more. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like it's just a lot.
How many days did this shoot take, this whole film?
The first, basically it was broken into two halves, as I said, and basically each one was like 8 or 9 days. Which, if you think about, given all the locations and everything else, is kind of insane. You know? And so we were really pushing it and like trying to, again, like I said, it's down to the last, like, it was always like, I have 3 shots left. I've got 40 minutes. We're going to try our best. Like, we're always going right up to the end and like hoping and trying to honor the crew and the cast to make sure that they can not fall over, you know what I mean? Like it's almost like, you know, when you're working that hard, you have to make sure nobody gets hurt. You know what I mean? And,
it's like an endurance test.
It really is. Yeah, no, I think, and so I think that that's part of, again, why I've always loved writing things for people I know, because it's like, again, if you're writing for Sol Miranda or you're writing for Victoria Cartagena, she was sending me texts 30, 40 days before we were shooting, and she'd already memorized her lines. You know what I mean? And you know that when you're going to have that as your number one in your call sheet, she's coming in so prepared that it's really just like, she doesn't want to rehearse. She just wants to show up and do it. And she's ready, you know, which is, I mean, it's all you could ever ask for as a director.
Of course. Do you feel you work better under pressure?
I'd like to think that nobody works better under pressure. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's the only way that I've ever worked as a director, frankly, because I don't know anybody. I think I always imagine that I'm like, oh, you know, like these sets that are like, I'm sure like the Coen brothers have much more relaxed sets, but I'm sure that's phony. And I'm sure they're terrified out of their minds too. You know what I mean? But the only thing I can say is that for me, I seem to have done, I do okay with it. And then maybe someday it would be amazing to not to have maybe 80%, you know, of what we're trying to accomplish in one day would be great.
If only you can control that chaos, that'd be
no, of course.
So what do you hope? This film is very deep. It's very spiritual almost, and it says a lot about human relationships, especially a mother-daughter. What do you hope audiences take away from the film?
You know, I think first and foremost, I hope that they're moved. I hope that it engages them, and particularly these two lead actors, but right on down with everyone in the cast. What I was trying to do, there's this sense of light that is coming, you know, like there's almost like a supernatural element to the story. I think for me, you know, one of them is a principal, one of them is an attorney. I tried to be super specific about their careers. I did a lot of research about what Victoria Cartagena's character would be specifically working on as an attorney. And I think sometimes in that specificity, I find that when I'm watching a movie, it opens me where I can just see the human being a little bit more. And I understand that if I can understand what that person's lunch is like and what that person's workday is like, it opens my heart a little bit. And that was really what I was trying to do with all the characters, is like, how can I how can I connect this so that a person who's coming to watch this movie will be able to see themselves, whether or not they're Latinx or Jewish, that, you know, because the characters are, you know, marrying someone in the Jewish persuasion.
Right.
My favorite movies are sometimes like foreign films where I'm just like, I know nothing about this culture. And yet at the same time, I'm crying and I'm completely identifying with that person. Right. And so I hope that there's this sense of everybody in their lives has a relationship with a loved one, whether it's a parent or someone else, where they just can't quite figure out how much they love each other and how to express that. And there's that tension and that difficulty, you know, and I think that's the overarching theme, but there's so many, you know, within that, that's, I think, what I would hope most people would come away from it.
Well, I'll tell you, I was definitely moved, especially again with Saul's performance. And I should add that I'm actually half Puerto Rican, and I know that Saul is Puerto Rican. So she basically seemed like an aunt to me. So it was really cool seeing her.
Oh, great.
Yeah, in that type of role.
I'll tell her.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears a bit. I just want to know, obviously you're a very gifted filmmaker. I'm curious, who are some of your filmmaker influences?
Oh, my influences. Well, I think one of the biggest influences on this movie, this specific movie, is a Taiwanese filmmaker named Edward Yang, who made a movie called Yi Yi that won the Palme d'Or back in 2000. And that's a movie just about a handful of like a family in Taiwan, which again, I like know nothing about anyone from Taiwan. And I went and saw it like 3 times in the movie theater, and it just deeply made me cry. And also, I also learned afterward that because of his budget, he was doing a lot with light and about shooting people's reflections. I learned later it was like because he was like, I only had enough film to shoot, and he was like, I couldn't do coverage, so I was just bouncing it off and getting a beautiful reflection of the actors. But it was something that I was definitely exploring with this. And, you know, obviously growing up, the Coen brothers have meant a lot to me. You know, and oh gosh, so many. But I think, yeah, you know, I would probably start with them.
Okay. Favorite Coen Brothers film?
A Serious Man, you know.
Oh, nice.
But, yeah. How about you?
That's a quieter one. I think it's a toss up between Barton Fink and The Big Lebowski. Yeah. But
yeah,
pretty much every movie they've ever made has been
yeah,
great, or at least really good. So yeah, they're definitely on my favorite filmmakers list. And I think you're going to be on that list too, Daniel.
oh, thank you. I hope.
Yeah,
someday,
for sure.
someday. Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm curious, what are some of the other challenges you faced on set?
Well, I think it's, you know, I think it's really, well, probably the best way to describe it is that the type of filmmaking I do, I would call favor-based filmmaking. And like, and again, I would say that some of the challenges are just like, some of it is logistical and some of it's personal. We don't have any money. So honestly, in some of these scenes are written specifically where I'm like, I think I can get a doctor's office. I live in downtown Brooklyn. So it was like, I knew that there were a handful of hotels down here. And if I was just persistent enough, one of them I could maybe guilt into giving me like, you know, a bunch of hotel rooms for nothing. I knew somebody who was a lawyer who was going to maybe let us in and shoot all those law firm scenes for free, which we did. And I think literally just getting crews in New York City, getting gear, there's no way, you're not like, when you're at our financial level, there's no way to park. You can't like have it like, anybody who's ever been in New York City sees these massive trucks whenever there's a film shoot, and like, we didn't have that. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't have that. And also when you're working for 12 hours, it became this thing where it was like, okay, but wait, now we have to get all the gear across the city. Now what? You know what I mean? And who's going to volunteer to stay up for an extra 4 to 6 hours to get to, like, we're going to have to rent a truck. We're going to have to load it into the truck. All of those things are logistical nightmares. Who can I get who's going to be willing, who's an experienced gaffer, who's an experienced key grip, who's going to be willing to work for minimum wage? You know what I mean? When any other show in New York City is paying, you know, like, honestly, people like that are $700, $800, $900 a day, you know? And I think the personal element that comes with that is, you have to be, for me, I'm like, I have very high standards for the storytelling that I want to do. Obviously, you could probably tell that it's like something that I'm storyboarding every shot. I'm agonizing over every line. They're written for people. And yet at the same time, I don't have the money to just like, I just don't have enough money to do anything where everybody's coming here as a favor. That's why I was calling it favor based. And so you're in that weird zone where it's like we were in a doctor's office for one of the scenes, and I remember her being like, "Whoa, this isn't what I thought," and I was really hoping you guys could leave within the next 2 hours. And it was like, and I'm like, okay,
oh boy, crunch time.
yeah, and there's all that stuff about like, okay, you're here, and are you going to commit to? And I think what's great about Soul Miranda and so many of the other people working is just like, hey, we're here, we're doing this. We would have done it for free, you know what I mean? So we're here. Don't feel bad about our feelings. Like, because half the time I'm walking around being like, oh God, these guys are going to be so mad at me because I actually want to do that scene again. I don't think we have it and I want to do it again. But I'm like, and you have to, I think it's actually, to be honest with you, it's a personal thing that I'm working on. It's just like, if everybody's here, they're here to honor the story. You got to tell them we got to do it again, and that's a real battle,
Oh, the plight of indie filmmaking.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, the movie looks great. It doesn't look like an indie film at all. It looks like
thank you.
like a big budget film, which is great. And I guess that's mostly due to the camera and lighting setup.
Amazing work by Colin Brazy, who's our DP. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, Daniel. So we got about another minute or two. I just want to. Are there any other projects you're working on now that you could talk about?
Well, Sol and I wrote a short film that we shot over the summer, and we're going to be hopefully having it screen in festivals. We wrote and produced it together, and we shot it in her hometown. And that'll be coming out hopefully this spring on some festivals. And I think once this clears, I did that honestly because I remember I just said to Sol, we're having such a good time working together. And I was like, there's no way we could raise enough money to make another feature film right now, but let's just go do something, and because I think as a director, you got to keep working, you have to keep getting on set. And so for me, it was just a matter of like, let's do that, but once this
It'll be
clears,
a short film.
It's a short film. Yeah. It's going to be, and that'll hopefully, we'll hopefully be bringing it to film festivals in the spring.
Nice.
And, once this movie clears, I have a handful of outlined ideas, and I'm going to sit down and pick the next one that I'll write for the next feature.
Exciting. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So how can people see Come Find Me? How can they come find me? Or
Come Find Me movie.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Anybody who's New York City based, starting Friday, we're going to be playing at the Village East Cinemas
Nice.
the 13th through the 19th of January.
Okay.
There's going to be talkbacks Friday night, the 7:15 show, Friday night through Monday night. I'll be there with various cast members. Sol Miranda will be there most nights. And Sol Miranda, Victoria Cartagena, and Tova Felci will be there on Sunday night. And so anybody can see it at the Village East Cinemas. There's like 5 shows a day. Also, it's available on Amazon, Vudu, Apple TV, Google Play. So starting Friday, it's streaming everywhere. So please watch it. And these amazing actors.
That's so cool. I'm so happy for you, Daniel. This is exciting. The film is great. I'm positive audiences are going to love it because it definitely resonated with me. So yeah, it was just a beautifully made human drama. And also, I wanted to mention the elementary school that she used was perfect. It was a perfect location for those scenes with Sol. So I just want to throw that in there.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Brooklyn New School. So, yes.
Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right.
Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, Daniel, thank you for your time tonight. This is great. Everybody go see Come Find Me. I'm Randy Younger. I'm your host for Under the Radar. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.